There. So I'm start with a rather extended quote this morning. So bear with me. This is from Ernest Holmes' Whittier dedication address. Let me clear my throat real quick. Each of us should seek that beam of light within and follow it to the great light, the light that is in everything. We must acquiesce to it and surrender all that has made us unhappy, all that has isolated us from it. Only then can God fully pronounce itself through us and in us and personalize himself as us. We must awaken ourselves and rediscover the lost paradise. Find within us that child who was not afraid of the universe in which he lived, who did not deny himself or his God, and who had not listened to the dull, monotonous tone of condemnation. There is a place on the side of the mountain we are all ascending where, having gone beyond the peaks and obstructed the light for us, our ascent reaches an apex where no longer any shadows are cast. This is the light that is spoken of, that lighteth every person's path, and you believe that you live. Believe that you are light. As you believe in the possibility of your own soul, believe it is God. As you believe in God, believe in yourself. Ernest. Okay. So, as I started working on this talk a few days ago, well, I've been working on it for weeks, but seriously working on it a few days ago, I thought, well, what is it about this movie, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade? What is it about this movie that touches us? What is it about it, or touches me, touches us, touches people? And it's about, a lot of it, action and adventure movies have this theme. It is that hero's journey, right? We go, we start feeling good about ourselves. We go on this journey. We're looking for something larger. We fall down, we get up, we fall down, we get up, we fall down, we get up again, and we get to the end and we win. Right? Fall down 7, get up 8. Fall down 8, get up 9. That's how we get there. And heaven knows Indiana Jones falls down and hurts himself a lot. And in this particular film, there is a spiritual tone and undercurrent that we find. And it is all about the Grail quest. And early on in the movie, he starts pondering, he starts talking with his boss, Professor Marcus Brody, dean of this college or something like that. And Marcus looks at him and says, well, Indy, the quest for the cup of Christ is the quest for the divine in all of us. The quest for the Grail is the individual quest for the divine in all of us. And so that's why I gave the title, the quest of the initiate. Because that's the quest that we are all on, our spiritual quest. Our quest to touch the place inside of us as Ernest was talking about, where we know that God is all there is, where we know that it is in this spirit that we live and move and have our being, where we know that there is a larger life without any doubt that says, I'm okay. Let's keep it simple. It says, I'm okay. I wake up in the morning and I'm okay. I can be happy. I can live my life. I can move forward, expecting good stuff to happen. And if it's not all good stuff, at least I'm enough to face it. I'm enough to handle whatever life may present me. Right? And if you just look around the room, we all have a 100% success rate of getting through the day. Right? We getting to this moment. It may not have always been easy, and we've made it. And yes, I mean, speaking for myself, there's been plenty of challenges, plenty of dark times, plenty of times when I really wasn't happy with me, and certainly not happy with the condition of my life. And I'm here today. I made it through, and better for it. A better person today for having had the experiences. Am I happy with all the mistakes? No. Am I grateful for the lessons? Yes. Yes. Jesse Jennings writes in the same book, the collected essays of Ernest Holmes, Essential Ernest Holmes, he writes, the part of us that seeks God is the presence of God at our level of awareness. The part of us that seeks God, it's the presence of God. I'm sorry, what was that? The part of us that seeks God is the presence of God at the level of our awareness. And he goes on. Not rest of them. And that harkens back to what Ernest Holmes was saying, what we are looking for, we are looking with and looking at. What we are looking for, we are looking with. It is the spirit in us seeking connection. It is the spirit of life in us seeking to reconnect with itself. Not that we're ever really disconnected. It's just whether or not we're aware of it. Whether or not I'm conscious of it. How present am I to the presence as it moves through me? And if I'm not present, what is it that's driving me away? What is it that I'm forgetting? I got invited a few weeks ago to help with a book study. They were wrapping up a book study on Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, and they invited me in to come in and kind of talk with them a little bit. And they were coming towards the end of the book, and they were talking about surrender and acceptance. Surrender and acceptance. It's like, am I going to simply judge? Am I going to sit in my life and be in judgment about what's going on? Or can I just simply look at it and say, okay, this is what it is? And what is my response? How can I stay present with what's happening and not simply react emotionally or get upset about it or run from it or resist it? Can I just sit and be present with what's in front of me, be present in the moment and take a breath and take a pause and say, okay, and now what? And what's the next choice for me? What can I do? It's like I was reminded of, times when pick a kid, when any of them were little, and we'd be in the kitchen or wherever it is, and we'd have a cup of milk or a cup of chocolate milk or a cup of, heaven forbid, red Kool-Aid. And that red Kool-Aid ends up on the couch. How many of us would be conscious enough to stop and pause and breathe before saying something? Or probably not saying something, probably going, "Oh no!" And that's what's next, right? Do we have those red Kool-Aid incidents in our life? How many of them do we have on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Each one of those is an opportunity to practice pausing and saying, okay, and now what? Or, okay, I'm just going to be here now, and then decide, and then choose, right? That's surrendering. That's surrendering up all my history. That's surrendering up all the triggers that I installed. Thank you for reminding me of that phrase. All my self-installed triggers, all those little things that I took on over the years based on experience, valid experience, no doubt. It's like Indiana Jones saying, "Dad, quit calling me Junior." We get to choose, right? If we stop and take a breath and pause, that puts us in a place where we get to choose what's next on the journey. What's next on the quest for me? It's that presence in me seeking the present. And that happens when I am able to stop and breathe and pause. The first trial, as Indiana Jones, they get to, we're going to fast forward through the whole movie towards the end. And there are 3 trials. First trial, the penitent man will pass. The penitent man is humble before God. That's the first clue to the little trap he has to move through. I'm not going to tell you about the traps, but these are the clues. And these are clues for us about how to move through our spiritual challenges, how to move through our spiritual life into the next, whatever the next step is. If you look up the etymology of the word humble, and I have, it is also tied to in some ways, to the word debonair. And debonair speaks to a quality of an individual who moves through life wholly expecting everything to be fine. Not careless, but carefree. To move through life with a certain self-assurance and confidence that all is well. And that's also born of humility. It's not born of arrogance, but born of a sense that just life is good and I am just in alignment with that. An individual that accepts life as it is and understands that there is a greater something, a greater presence of life that is beyond me, beyond my understanding, so to speak. And so I allow myself to be, they move to a point where they say actually kneels before God, but is in a worshipful place with the larger life. So that's where we begin with that. So where am I? Where am I in that? Indiana Jones, to get to this place, in order to even in order to even step into the series of trials, Indiana Jones has to set aside everything he thought, because he was pretty much agnostic. Let's look at it. Indiana Jones, as you saw in the trailer, had called it a bedtime story. Yet here he is in the end of the story going, okay, there's something here. Okay, there's something here. And we go on to the next. The next clue. Only in the footsteps of God will he proceed. What are the footsteps of God? What are the footsteps of God? The teachings of Jesus, I think we find the best example of that. Okay, Jesus said a couple things. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. It's not I am. He's not talking about himself. He's talking about his way, the way he lives, as an example. So the footsteps of God would be, okay, so how did our greatest example, so to speak, live? He lived as love. He understood that Spirit moved in and through him. He understood the power of the words I am. And actually there's an indication to it in the movie. And the footsteps of God is referred to as shifted to the name of God, the name of God being Jehovah. But in the language, you have to figure out how to spell it, because you had to step in the letters. There's no J in the Hebrew alphabet. It's an I. It starts with I. Interesting. I am. The name. So how do we name ourselves? How would you name yourself? I am love. I am happy. I am joy. I am abundant. I am healthy. I am whole. When we say I am, we are naming ourselves. We're talking about our own nature. We're not just giving ourselves a name. We're talking about the qualities of who and what we are. Who and what we are. So we move on to the next. The path of God, the leap of faith. So even after everything we know, everything we've learned, everything we've come to understand about who and what we are, sometimes we just have to step, because we don't know what's next. We have to step forward in faith and trust, understanding that we have done everything we can, the best we can, up into this moment. And there's a larger life that says, you know what? There's a larger life, a little voice inside that says, you know what? I believe in you. And sometimes, even if I'm not believing in me, there are people around me that I can borrow their belief. See, I may not be enough to believe in me, but Reverend Joe believes in me. Joe believes in me. Right? Thank you. Alexander believes in me. Steve believes in me. Katie believes in me. Diane believes in me. All of us believe in each other, right? We can rely on the faith and power of community. That's why we come together. Because the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. There's a power in the presence. There's a power in the fact that we come together week after week. Not all of us are here every week, but that's okay. Even though we may not physically be present, we think about each other. And it's not just on Sunday. The path of God, the leap of faith, is understanding that there is a power greater than I am that I can use and that I do use. and that it's always working for me, whether I know it or not, and that is saying yes to me, yes to the decisions I make, the quality of the life that I choose to live. It's like, how do I win? How do I go forward? And I lay more attention on what it is my heart desires than it is I'm pushing against, right? Because Spirit is saying yes. God is saying yes. Spirit is always saying yes to whatever we are giving attention to. I got tired of watching Indiana Jones for the third or fourth time yesterday. I pulled enough out of it that I could. And we had started watching. I found out that Katie had not seen The Last Jedi yet. I know, right? So we started watching it a couple days ago, and we kind of got towards the end of it. And so I'm sitting there, and I've got my notes. I'm working on my notes and kind of fine tuning stuff. And all of a sudden, I hear this phrase, da, 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 and I will hold it, pause, ran it back. It was towards the end of the movie. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this movie. I have never heard this phrase. And it goes like this. I wrote it down in the corner. We will not win the war by destroying what we hate, but by saving what we love. How many of you missed that, Liz Bunny? Who else missed that one? All right. See, yeah. We will not win the war by destroying what we hate, but by saving what we love. So what is it you would choose to create? What is it you would choose to call forth into your life by giving it attention? It's an amazing thing. When we move through this cycle, we move through this process, and this initiate's quest thing, it's not something that happens just once. And it's kind of like people talk about their dark night of the soul, right? Oh, I had my dark night of the soul, and I'm like, you know what? It's not a one-time thing. We spend time in the light, we spend time in the dark, we spend time in the gray. We spend time in all form and function of our own creative process, our own spiritual unfoldment, our own growth as individuals. We spend time in the light, we spend time in the dark. We spend time in joy, we spend time in sadness. And it cycles over and over and over and over and over. Because we keep learning, we keep peeling the onion back. We keep doing that. And it's kind of like yesterday. We went on a hike yesterday morning, early in the morning. Yavapai Point Trail out at Lake Pleasant. And we were getting up towards the top. And all of a sudden I noticed that the trail kept getting narrower and narrower. And it occurred to me that it was getting narrower and narrower because people were quitting before they got to the top. Am I? How many times have you? How many times have I quit before I really got finished, before I really got where thought I wanted to be? And we kept going, we got to the top. It's kind of like that old story, the miner who sold the gold miner who sold the mine, and then the person who bought the mine chipped away the next 3 feet and found the gold. So that's the question. Am I quitting before I get to the goal? Am I quitting before I reach my goal? If I just go a little bit further, am I going to be there? Because those are the choices we make. Those are the opportunities we have. So in the end, this quest is something that never stops. For me, there's always growing to do. There's always depths inside of me to plumb. The love of Spirit, the love of God as expresses through each and every one of us is infinite. The source is infinite. So why would I limit it? So let me love more today than I did yesterday. Let me live more today than I did yesterday. Let me get out of my own way. And I would invite each of us to get out of our own way. And part of that is just beginning with gratitude, beginning to be grateful for what we have. Starting with the breath in our lungs, the food on our table, the light that turns on when I switch on the light, the sunshine outside, the breeze, the wind, the rain, the friends. Being grateful for just the little things that we so often take for granted. Recognizing and acknowledging that all of it, and all of us are here by divine appointment, by divine design. And I think recognizing that is the beginning of wisdom and the beginning of the quest. So, with that, questions? Yes, ma'am.
I missed one of the words in one of the quotes you said. It says, we will not win the war by destroying what we hate, but by
Saving what we love. Yes. Not destroying what we hate by saving what we love. And it was a she, actually.
A lady fighter.
It was a lady fighter, yes. As she was dying. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I missed a word too. So Ernest said in your first.
Oh, in the first part?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
What we are looking for.
Oh, we are looking with and we are looking at.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
And that was off the top of my head. Yes, Valerie. Thank you, Joe.
I have a quick comment. I really like the new word debonair. I'm going to take that one on. And I got that when you gave the description of that. So thank you for debonair. I'm in debonair today.
Yeah. I'll give credit where credit was due. That was an old reference I learned from my Bible interpretation instructor, Dr. Jim Munson. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good word. And that was the translation from Aramaic, I think. So.
Okay, so I have a question. When
Yeah.
you were talking about the acceptance, the surrender and acceptance, right?
Right.
So I had an opportunity recently to pause for a second, take that pause, but it didn't come automatically. It took a second to get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to that pause, it felt good. Like the shift, it felt like I really wanted to shift.
Mm-hmm.
But the initial response, the emotions that had come with an initial response, even though the shift felt good, they were still there. And so I guess my question is, does that mean like I missed out on like one of those parts, surrender or acceptance? Or is it that I just needed to, because again, the shift felt good, but like, how does that line up, right? That the shift was there, but the initial emotions were still strong.
Right. And no, that's a great point. And that happens for me frequently that same way. For me, a lot of it is it's a function. It's a cycle interrupt for me, right? So I have that first initial response, and then but I didn't react, right? I have the feeling, and I look at that, and I say, okay, where's that coming from? And I breathe. So the question for me, one, is, yeah, okay, I get to pause and I breathe, and that brings me back to the moment. And that's the opportunity to do a couple things. One is to look and say, okay, what triggered that? Or what was that triggering in me? Is that an old memory? Is that a conditioned response? Is that something I need to look at now or later? And then I file that if I have something in front of me to handle, okay, then I handle that. But at least I've kind of made a mental note that says, okay, this is something I need to go back to and look at possibly, so that the next time, maybe I'm not triggered. Maybe there's an opportunity for me here to learn and grow. So this kind of situation doesn't put me into that fight or flight type of response. Right? That answer? Okay.
Clarity on that for me.
Okay.
The Kool-Aid example is great. Kool-Aid on the white couch.
I know. Right?
Okay, so there's a reaction to clean it up as quick as you can so it doesn't stain.
Right.
Are we talking about the emotional response of blame? Rather than that fix it before it ruins.
Right. Yeah.
energy.
Yeah. So it's the emotional response is like, oh my God. And
look what you did.
Right. And look at what you did, making everybody wrong, making everything wrong. You know, I've talked before about frequently how I've had working with my kids on when we make mistakes, that's okay. And it's like, okay, we made a mistake, and what can we do better next time, right? Rather than responding emotionally with rage or yelling or screaming, it's breathing and saying, okay, what can we do better next time?
Yeah.
Right? There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into all that. The core idea is to move myself out of that fight or flight kind of instantaneous that is just not productive. There are times when that kind of response is necessary, like in a life-threatening situation, right? That's a whole different kind of thing, like grabbing somebody and pulling them out of traffic, right? Or stopping my kid from running into the street, or that kind of a thing. That's a whole different kind of scenario. But
I think because your question was really important, it's something that I felt recently, and I've talked about it with my prayer partner and with Beverly and with Colette about, I was very angry about something, and I was just so shocked at how angry I was that I paused and I asked those questions, what am I really angry about? But what I was aware of, that just the awareness that it didn't feel good and that I didn't want that reaction and that I am surrendering things is enough. It's enough to know I'm stopping and I'm questioning those things. And that awareness is a good thing for me. So, and I'm not alone in that, obviously. So you don't have to surrender and give up everything immediately. Sometimes it takes steps, and that awareness is really a nice place to be.
Great. Thank you, Diane.
Diane, you basically just said what I wanted to say. Of course. I just wanted to emphasize that having that awareness of, oh, I reacted differently, or I still had these feelings and I managed to react differently, or I let my feelings get the better of me. That observation and awareness is beautiful. That's wonderful. That's progress. That's good stuff. And it takes time sometimes to make those shifts, and changes stick. With anything, like, right, there's old programming, something you've been doing your whole life, then you could get the awareness and then you're like, oh, I got to change this. It isn't magically overnight, but the awareness is key.
I think a lot of times we, those negative emotions that, rear up, I think sometimes we nurture them. I want to stay angry at that person or that thing, so But
Right.
I think that's where the prayer work and the exploring the reason for
Right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I found myself, upset the last couple of days about a couple of things, and I had to really stop and look and say, okay, what am I really upset about? What am I really anxious about? Is there fear tied to that? Because I know that frequently anger is tied to fear. So I look back and say, okay, this is anger, but is it really anger? Is there something I'm fearful about? Fearful of losing, fearful of feeling, fearful, looking at all of that. And so that's a whole other talk we can do another time. And being grateful for the opportunities, right? So we can have a sense of being looking at those situations, the red Kool-Aid situations or the other, any whatever it is, and say, okay, in the end, what am I grateful for? What learning can I be grateful for in all of this, right? So, okay, I think that's it. Okay, practicing the principles. Couple things this week. Today, I accept and celebrate the gifts of God in every moment. That's your affirmation for the week. And as we go through the day, if you choose to, pause, or at the end of the day, pause and say, where is the gift of God in this moment? Or where have the gifts of God been for me this week? Okay? Pretty simple stuff. Simple and impactful. So let's take all this into prayer this morning. Let's kind of wrap it all up and put a bow on it. And in this consciousness we've established here this morning, we are grateful. And we recognize that there is one power and presence. This power is God, infinite spirit, life, intelligence, divine mind, divine love. In, through, and as each and every one of us, we live in it and it in us. It flows through and around us. And through and around everything we see, touch, feel, and experience. This is the expression and the experience of God as our lives. And so we are grateful for this. We rest in this. We breathe in this. And we celebrate it. We celebrate this journey that enlivens us and enlightens us with every breath. With every thought, we learn and grow. With every action, we recognize the activity of divine life through us. And so I know and accept and celebrate for each and every one of us that we are learning and growing beings, that we are the fulfillment of the expression of God itself, of Spirit itself. Each and every one a point of light within the mind of God. Each and every one a vehicle through which this infinite Spirit expresses, and we accept it. We get our limited ideas about who and what we are out of the way. We suspend judgment and celebrate love as each and every one of us. We set aside everything that has gone before so that we can be the fullness of this expression right here and right now. Every cell and fiber of our being alight and alive. We accept the gift because we know the gift is already given. And that gift is love. That gift is peace. This gift is joy. This gift is health and wholeness. This gift is prosperity and abundance. Ever flowing and increasing in, through, and as every one of us. For this, we are so very, very grateful. Knowing that this blessing is for us and for each and every life that we touch and experience, this city, this country, this state, truly this world experiences this truth, this blessing, the manifestation of this word right now. And so we let it be, and so it is.
So it is.